Mario and Luigi, the Super Mario franchise's take on the RPG genre. In these games, Mario and Luigi, sometimes with company, must traverse through a vast world, gaining battle experience, learning new moves and techniques, clearing objectives, and best of all, defeating enemies and bosses, all to save the world from... well, it depends on the game. In Superstar Saga, a foreign invasion. In Partners in Time, an alien invasion. In Bowser's Inside Story, an epidemic. In Dream Team, just a really bad villain. And in Paper Jam, a collision of two worlds. In my opinion, the funnest part of these games is fighting all the bosses, which is why today, I'm ranking every Mario and Luigi boss. But first, a few rules. I'm judging these bosses based on how fun and hard they are to beat, and I won't be counting any penultimate or final bosses, since they deserve their own list, and I won't be counting any demonstration bosses, for obvious reasons. And as always, this is only my opinion and no one else's. Alright, that's all for this intro, so let's go! Okie dokie. '58, Piranha Bean from Superstar Saga. It's honestly debatable whether or not you could really call this one a boss. It doesn't even use the boss music, and you only fight it with Luigi to get a fruit from it. The only attack it really has is shooting fire, which isn't too hard to dodge, and it's also weak to Luigi's Thunderhand, so despite only being able to fight it with one bro, it's a really easy and simple boss battle, if I can even call it that, which is why it's my least favorite. '57, Hammer Bros from Partners in Time. Although this one's technically a boss this time, it's not much better or harder than the Piranha Bean. All they really do for attacks is throw and hit with hammers and launch each other, which are all pretty easy to avoid. Even though you only fight them with the babies, it's another really easy battle, but understandably so, as it's one of the earlier bosses in the game. '56, Tolstar from Superstar Saga. This is another early, rudimentary boss battle, except here, you're able to use bro attacks. But that's really the only upside. The only attack he has is throwing spiky balls, which are, again, fairly easily avoidable. But for the first real boss battle, it's pretty good, I guess. '55, Dermite from Bowser's Inside Story. This is a relatively later boss, so she has quite a few attacks, including spider webbing, even though she's not a spider, summoning allies, charging at the bros, and even eating them. Ugh. And she can also heal herself, and you also have access to more bro moves. But despite all this, it still feels pretty easy and mundane. And let's face the elephant in the room, a worm with Birdo's head is kind of underwhelming for a boss. '54, Grobot from Dream Team. Another early boss. All this one does to attack is shoot water, which is easy to avoid, and though you do have access to a few bro moves, this one's still really easy, simple, and mundane, so I can't put it any higher. But a water-shooting robot is still a cooler boss than a worm with Birdo's head. '53, Petey Piranha from Paper Jam. Another early boss. For now, get used to that. All Petey really does to attack is spin around and shoot globs of goop, which are easy to avoid. But here, you have access to even more bro moves and trio moves, which makes it just a bit more fun. Also, Petey Piranha is a way cooler boss than some Birdo worm. '52, Kamek from Partners in Time. For attacks, this boss can shoot fire, throw spiky balls, and even make copies of himself, which is all pretty fun, I guess. Not too hard to dodge, but not too easy either. You also have access to more bros moves, so it's not too mundane, I guess. Alright, fine. Despite being a more middle boss, this one just feels more like an early, rudimentary boss. '51, Wisdom from Bowser's Inside Story. Seriously, another Birdo worm? But this one at least has some better attacks. Web slinging, some weird heart-shaped crystal, star beams, shrinking and chasing the bros, and, well, actually, that's about it. But she's still better than Dermite, not only for those awesome attacks, but also because you have access to more bros moves. '50, Drago Ho-Ho from Superstar Saga. Although this is another early boss, this one has a technique that makes things a bit harder. Stones, which if the bros don't destroy, it can hop on and shoot its flaming rocks from, making them a lot harder to avoid. But that's all it really has going for it. But, admittedly, a little stubby dragon's cooler than a Birdo worm. If I have to say Birdo worm one more time... '49, Elder Shrooboid from Partners in Time. Surprisingly, this one's a later boss, and therefore you have access to a lot of bro moves, but this one still just feels kinda simple and mundane. It can Olympic hammer throw, as well as grow big and throw fire and spiky balls, so it's not a particularly easy boss, but nonetheless, not a very interesting one either. '48, Hooraw from Superstar Saga. This one's kinda similar to Drago Ho-Ho. He can hide beneath stone pillars, unless the bros destroy them, but aside from that, his only real attack is shooting lasers, which can be a bit hard to dodge, but despite that, and the fact that you have access to bro attacks, this one's just pretty fun. Well, it is an early one, so... 47. Wiggler from Superstar Saga. As I'm sure many of you know, Wigglers are known for their insane tempers, and this one likes to attack with ramming and shockwaves, and until the bros hit all its body segments, it's impervious to all damage, which means this boss battle's not simple, but regardless, it is still pretty easy, and you have access to a few bro attacks, so it's at least pretty fun, I guess. 46. Swiggler from Partners in Time. This one has quite a few attacks, including shockwaves, minions, UFO lasers, and poison gas. It also has this weird drink, which if the bros put a poison mushroom in it, it'll weaken it and lower its defenses. This boss is a little bit challenging, but still not very intriguing, although I will give it points for being unique, especially compared to every other Wiggler boss. 45. Wiggler and Popple from Dream Team. Sorry, 3 Wigglers in a row. This one's kinda the same as the Superstar Saga one, except you don't have to hit any body segments first, and Popple's here. Just kinda, as usual, being annoying as all hell. Once again, this one likes to attack with ramming and shockwaves, and that's honestly it. Popple has some attacks too, but does anyone really care about him? This one, despite being a bit more on the mundane side, is quite fun nonetheless. 44. King Bob-omb from Paper Jam. All he really does to attack in this boss battle is throw bombs, which aren't always easy to dodge, and you also have access to a lot of bro and trio moves at this point in the game, so not too easy or simple, and pretty fun, but still not one of my favorites. Oh, did I forget to mention the timer? Yeah, if you don't beat him in time, you lose, so this one's at least unique. 43. Torque from Dream Team. This one attacks by digging underground, spinning around, and drilling with its horn, and the occasional line of spiky balls. It can also steal coins from the bros, so this is another unique one, but despite all that, it's still pretty easy, and though somewhat interesting, kinda mundane. That's all I have to say. 42. Paper Petey Piranha from Paper Jam. Like my alliteration, this one likes to make copies of itself, and attack with charging and shockwaves. That's all. Yeah, not a whole lot to this boss fight, so it's quite simple, but still pretty fun and interesting, and way better than regular Petey Piranha. Jeez, Petey, getting outdone by a paper? 41. Queen Bean from Superstar Saga. I'm just gonna say this right off the bat, this one's quite interesting. With her anchor arms, she's invincible and attacks with shockwaves, and once the bros turn her anchor arms into noodle arms, she's no longer invincible and attacks by regurgitating beans. Can a bean! This one's pretty easy, yet unique, and quite fun. 40. Petey Piranha from Partners in Time. This one has quite a few weird attacks, which include seeds or something, a baby plant with a long tongue, and some sort of quicksand trap. Pretty unique. And the bros have access to more bro moves, so this Petey Piranha battle is way better than the Paper Jam one. It's also more challenging and intriguing, so it also beats Paper Petey Piranha. 39. Mrs. Thwomp from Partners in Time. This one's got a good number of attacks. These include shockwaves, splitting up into smaller entities, and charging. Wow, much more impressive than regular Thwomps, who just smash into the ground. This is a pretty weird, strange, and unusual concept for a boss, but it's still quite fun and intriguing, though not too difficult. 38. Scutlet from Bowser's Inside Story. What is it with Bowser's Inside Story and bug bosses? Although a plain old bug for a boss is kind of underwhelming, this one's admittedly pretty fun. It likes to attack with its long tongue, and it'll even throw Starlo, and when the bros hammer counter her, she gets all pissed off. Again, a bug boss is just meh, but as long as the battle's at least fun, that doesn't really matter. 37. Bowser and Phantasma from Dream Team. Similar to how Luigi powers up Mario in the Dream World, Bowser's fighting fire with fire, as Phantasma's powering him up. He likes to attack with, well, the usual, punching and breathing fire, as well as rolling around in a spiky shell. Phantasma can attack also. You additionally have access to a few Luiginary moves, so this one, despite being kind of on the easy side, is nevertheless fun and intriguing. We're finally getting to the really good ones. 36. Popple from Superstar Saga. The same old frustrating mofo he usually is. He likes to attack by simply charging and stealing your stuff, like your items or even hammers. That's all he really does. Despite being a later boss, he's quite easy to beat, but I have to give him credit. He tried to beat the Mario Bros with a sidekick twice and failed both times, yet took them on alone this time. He's got some really big, hairy, bean-shaped cojones. Or just a really small, bean-shaped brain. 35. Sea Pipe Statue from Bowser's Inside Story. Though this is one of the earlier bosses, it's quite an interesting one, since unlike most others, you can fight it with both the bros and Bowser. But again, it's an early boss, so it doesn't have very many attacks, and it's noticeably easy. But you have access to a few bro and special moves, so it's still quite fun. Although a statue for a boss is a pretty weird concept. 34. Mom Piranha from Superstar Saga. This one's attacks include huge energy orbs and vine whips, along with changing colors and therefore weaknesses and summoning allies. She can also heal herself. She's not really easy or hard, she's somewhere in the middle, but nevertheless, she is pretty fun, especially since you have access to a lot of bro moves. 33. Dreamy Mario from Dream Team. He's another early boss, but even so, the concept of fighting yourself is very clever, and even disregarding that, he has a few attacks that are quite easy, but still very fun to dodge. It just goes to show that sometimes, early bosses can be epic ones too. It's also pretty cool how Peach is watching and you have to save her. 32. Popple and Rookie from Superstar Saga. Like I said before, you actually fight these guys twice, but the fights aren't too different from each other, so I'm counting them both as one. Anyway, Popple does his usual charging and stealing thing, while Bowser can breathe fire and throw hammers. Oops, I mean Rookie. They also have some of their very own bro attacks. Popple's much more fun to fight when he has an ally, and also more challenging, and not to mention, you have access to quite a few bro attacks. Well, at least in the second battle you do. 31. The Shroobs from Bowser's Inside Story. Being promoted from a regular enemy to a boss in the sequel. Also, fighting a boss from a previous game is a pretty interesting concept. They do pretty much exactly what they do in Partners in Time. Shoot their lasers like there's no tomorrow. They are pretty easy to avoid though, but since they're a later boss, you have access to quite a few bro moves. So this one, despite being more on the easy side, is fun. 30. Wiggler from Bowser's Inside Story. This is definitely one of the funner Wiggler battles. Instead of only ramming and shockwaves, it also throws roots and vegetables, pun intended, and it'll even run in circles. And while Bowser fights it, the bros can fight the Fly Guys. You also have access to a few bro and special moves, and all that, along with the slight difficulty, means this boss battle is quite fun indeed. 29. Popple and Birdo from Superstar Saga. Popple does his usual irritating biz, while Birdo can shoot eggs and even suck the bros into her huge cannon mouth. Yeah, pretty similar to the Rookie battles, but Birdo's attacks are a bit harder to avoid than Rookie's, so this one's a better challenge. You also have access to more bro moves, so it's a bit more fun too, just a bit. 28. Hermie the Third from Superstar Saga. This lisping crab has one primary means of attack, his claws. They ain't for just attracting mates, you know, and he can also power himself up and heal. This all makes him quite a challenging boss, which is good since I love a good challenge, and especially since you have access to a lot of bro moves, he's also quite a fun boss. I can't help but wonder though, would Hermie the First and Second be better bosses? 27. Sunnyside from Partners in Time. This one likes to attack mainly by throwing eggs, and the occasional boo too. I'm not kidding, that's all it really does. I mean, you do have access to quite a few bro moves, but still not that special. But here's why I like it so much. There are Yoshis in those eggs, and once the bros break them all free, they'll launch a serious counterattack. I mean, come on, it's Yoshi. Everyone loves that guy. Sunnyside also has some difficulty, so yeah, I really like this one. 26. Trunkle from Superstar Saga. This one's pretty interesting. He attacks by throwing his fists, which are apparently detachable, and sucking in debris from behind the bros, and once he's taken a certain amount of damage, he'll divide into several smaller entities, which have their own attacks. But if you don't want to deal with that, just attack the tree on his head, but keep in mind, he can protect it. And he's a later boss, so you have access to more bro moves. In a nutshell, this one's fairly challenging and very fun. 25. King Boo from Paper Jam. He attacks mainly by shooting fire and turning invisible, but he does these in many different creative ways, meaning he's a quite challenging and really fun boss to fight. Also, for the first few turns or so, you can't use Paper Mario, and to get him back, you have to attack King Boo's minion, making this boss battle all the more interesting. And side note, it's another late boss, so you have more bro and trio moves. 24. Bowser and Baby Bowser from Partners in Time. You know what Bowser loves doing, right? Breathing fire. But since there's two of them, it's more than just that. The adult Bowser can retreat into his shell, and the baby can launch him at the bros. Fighting one Bowser is one thing, but fighting two at once? Back when Partners in Time came out, this was a really groundbreaking concept. This battle's also pretty hard and takes place late in the game, meaning you have access to a lot of bro moves. So, you know, fun. 23. Shroob Brat from Partners in Time. This one has quite a few unique attacks, all of which are a little hard and pretty fun to dodge. The main one, throwing its lollipop, has a really clever telegraph. While this one's more of a middle boss, it's still quite challenging, but that's what makes it so fun. And yes, you have quite a few bro attacks for this battle, though the concept is a bit strange. 22. Mamoshka from Dream Team. I'm gonna start by saying this one's unique. It has a weak spot, which jump attacks are really strong against. It can also summon allies, some of which can protect that weak spot. Additionally, it's got quite a few attacks that are kinda hard and very fun to dodge. And yes, you have access to more bro attacks, so this is another really fun one. Also with a better concept. 21. Jojora and her friend from Superstar Saga. Let's get the obvious out of the way. This is a really weird concept for a boss battle, but despite that, it's still challenging and really fun, since they both have quite a few hard to avoid attacks. Also, similar to Mom Piranha, Jojora's friends can change color and therefore weaknesses. This is also a later boss battle, so more bro attack access. 20. Midbis from Bowser's Inside Story. You do fight him more than once, but this one's the hardest and therefore funnest. He likes to attack by punching and Olympic hammer throwing and bouncing around. Yeah, not very special, but this battle's unique because it takes place in a ring, and each time you pull off an attack, the audience will throw coins your way. Midbiss's attacks are pretty easy to avoid, but regardless, this one has a clever concept, so I love it. And yes, more special attacks again. 19. Chuckalator from Superstar Saga. First thing I'm gonna say is, extremely epic concept! A sword-fighting monster made out of soda. Its attacks mainly consist of shooting blobs of soda, and it can use its shields to protect itself, and once it's almost out of HP, bubbles can heal it. So not only is the concept epic, the battle itself is also quite challenging and very fun. And yes, quite a few bro attacks. I've been saying that a lot. 18. Big Pokey Duo from Paper Jam. As Pokies usually go in Mario games, they use their body segments both to attack and protect their heads, and they do this in many different and clever ways, including through the use of teamwork. This is a rather early boss battle, so it is pretty easy, but because of their unique attack patterns, along with the fact that you have access to a few bro and trio moves, means this one's really fun. The concept is also really clever for a boss battle. 17. Wiggler and Paper Comic from Paper Jam. This one's my favorite Wiggler battle. This is because, with Paper Comic helping it, it has a litany of awesome, hard, and fun to dodge attacks, some of which include summoning allies, spitting seeds, rolling on a huge ball, and more. And once Wiggler's down, you'll face Paper Comic, who has a lot of his own attacks. Not only is this boss battle challenging and really fun, it has an extremely clever and epic concept. 16. Kamek from Dream Team. Sorry, 2 Kameks in a row. What's interesting about this one, though, is you have to fight him 3 times in a row, each one more challenging and fun than the last. He can make copies of himself, shoot colorful shapes, attack with a huge broom, and even heal, and more. And since he's a later boss, these are all hard and very fun to dodge. And you also have access to a lot more Luiginary attacks, so, in plain English, me love this one. 15. Elite Trio from Dream Team. With 3 of Bowser's goons working together, this boss battle has a lot of different attacks, which are not too hard, but still quite fun to dodge. There's also a special condition. To win, you have to KO all 3 of them at once. If you only KO 1 or 2, they'll get back up. And this is a middle boss, so you have more Luiginary attacks. In a nutshell, this one's one of a kind. 14. Cackletta from Superstar Saga. Finally, the time has come to face the main villain. Her attacks include black holes and lightning strikes, as well as making copies of herself. Only the black holes are pretty hard to dodge, but even so, all her attacks are really epic, and you have access to a few more bros moves since this is a late battle, so this one's honestly just really fun. That's it, short, sweet, and to the point. 13. Pit-Elodium from Dream Team. This one's attacks include lasers, turning into a giant hammer, and summoning allies, which can heal it. That may sound a bit simple, but these attacks can actually be quite hard to dodge, so this boss is really challenging, and I like that. You can also weaken it by attacking its wings, and once it's almost out of HP, it'll self-destruct, so this is another one-of-a-kind one, and overall, it's just really fun, which is, after all, what matters the most. 12. Blizzard Midbiss from Bowser's Inside Story. Midbiss is back at it, but this time he's much more of a threat. He has a lot more attacks, which are all way more epic and hard to avoid. These include summoning allies, which can heal him, unless Bowser sucks them in which case the bros can fight them, throwing snowballs, rolling around on a huge snowball, and more. And since he's a later boss, you have a lot more bro and special moves by this point, so this one, in addition to being a good challenge, is quite fun indeed. 11. Cretin from Bowser's Inside Story. This one's quite unique and interesting. First, it'll attack with energy orbs, and on the defensive side, each bro can only attack certain parts of it, and once it's taken a certain amount of damage, it'll divide into several smaller entities and start attacking with laser beams. To be honest, this one's not terribly challenging, but it's still really fun and has a clever concept. 10. Chargin Chuck Brigade from Paper Jam. Why does Paper Jam have so many bosses from other Mario games, while the other installments have original bosses? Maybe they just ran out of ideas? Anyway, these guys like to attack by, as usual, charging, and the occasional football throwing, and that's about it. But they do this in many different, clever, and creative ways. But despite that, this is still a pretty easy boss. But what really makes me like it is the concept. You're fighting several bosses at once. That's really epic. It's also quite fun, given the access you have to new bro and trio moves. 9. Bowser Memory ML from Bowser's Inside Story. Like I said before, fighting yourself is a very innovative concept. Granted, it's a blocky, rectangular version of yourself, but still, yourself. Together combined, they have a lot of attacks, most of which are inspired by the original Super Mario Bros. Game. Well, a few of L's, I guess Luigi's Mansion. Some of their attacks are a bit hard to dodge, so this one's fun, with a great concept. Wait, I already said that, didn't I? 8. Junker from Bowser's Inside Story. This is another later boss, so it's got quite a few attacks. These include charging, huge balls of trash, thwomps, and summoning minions, which have their very own attacks. All of these are pretty hard to avoid, and again, later boss, so you have more bro moves. Ergo, fun. Very fun, in fact. Also, a huge trash can robot for a boss? Pretty innovative concept, I must say. 7. The Hooraw Disciples from Dream Team, or at least their leader, Big Massif. I'm counting them all as one for a simple reason. They have very similar attacks to each other, with Big Massif basically being the culmination of them. Said attacks include, mainly, charging and throwing huge stuff. Yeah, doesn't sound very special, but I love this one primarily for the concept. Fighting 4 minor battles in a row, then topping it off with an epic major battle. It doesn't get much better than that. 6. Bowser Jr. and Paper Bowser Jr. from Paper Jam. These little guys have a whole lot of attacks, the usual charging and breathing fire, and so many more creative, epic, and hard to avoid ones. You know what hard to avoid means, right? Challenging, of course. And since they're a later boss, you'll have way more bro and trio moves at your disposal, so they're also really fun. And fighting 2 different versions of the same enemy at once is a pretty clever concept, I guess. 5. Commander Shroob from Partners in Time. This is another unique and interesting one. Before you can fight the commander, you have to take out this huge bomb, which is pretty easy, but once past that, the commander will attack by mainly hitting his own men. Well, that's some way to treat your brethren. While this can be a bit hard to avoid, this boss battle's still a smidge more on the easy side, but this is another one that I love mainly for the concept. I mean, come on, an army sergeant for a boss? That's freaking epic! He's also a later boss, so, you know, more bro move access. 4. Kamek and Paper Kamek from Paper Jam. These two have a whole lot of epic, hard-to-avoid attacks. These include portals, huge energy blasts, summoning allies, lasers, and way more. With all that, I'm sure it's clear, they're a great challenge, and with all the new bro and trio moves you'll have access to, they're also very fun. And like I said with the Bowser Jr.'s, fighting 2 different versions of the same boss is a pretty clever concept. 3. The Koopalings from Superstar Saga. This one's similar to the Hooraw Disciples. You have to fight all 7 Koopalings in order, and they all have similar attacks to each other, although with a few tweaks. Yes, that's why they're all sharing a spot. Some of their attacks include breathing fire, of course, making copies of themselves, spinning around, shockwaves, and many more. A few of them also seem to like playing tennis. It's just like I said with the Hooraws. I love boss sequences, where you have to fight several bosses consecutively in a row. Also, a few of the Koopaling battles have turn limits, meaning if you don't beat them fast enough, you lose. And they're also much later bosses, so you'll have access to a lot more bro moves. I think I've rambled on long enough. Long story short, the Koopalings are epic. 2. The Koopalings from Paper Jam. Koopalings back at it again, but this time it's different. Instead of fighting 1 at a time, you fight 2 or 3 at once. This opens up a lot of possibilities. Working together, combining attacks, healing each other, and more, which they all do very well. And like in Superstar Saga, they're much later bosses, so not only are they a great challenge, but you'll also have access to more bro and trio moves, so it's also extremely fun, even more so than in Superstar Saga. And again, the concept of fighting several bosses in a row is really epic. I've been saying a lot of the same stuff, haven't I? 1. Bowser from Bowser's Inside Story. This one's an interesting case. You know how, in Bowser's Inside Story, you play as Bowser, right? And now, you're fighting him as the bros. Like I said before, I really admire the concept of fighting yourself, and this boss battle pulls that off spectacularly. How does Bowser attack, you might ask? Well, with the exact same ones you use when you're fighting as him. Punching, breathing fire, the Goomba Storm, and the Shy Guy Squad. Since he's more of a middle boss though, he's not all that challenging, though you do have access to quite a few bro moves, so this one, along with the epic concept, is extremely fun. That's all there is to why it's easily my number 1 favorite Mario and Luigi boss battle of all time. So there you have it, my ranking of every Mario and Luigi boss. For more videos like this, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, please check out my social media. All links are in the description. Thank you very much for watching my video. See you next time. Mikoro Glyscore 472, out.